Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today it is Christmas Day, as you can see from my festive attire. I just found out that I finished my first semester of graduate school with a 4.0, so I'm slightly hyped, like I found out literally 2 minutes ago. Anyways, today's video is a collab video with Brighton. She has a channel called The Candid Confessional. I actually started watching her before I even started regularly posting. And the cool thing is that she's a very, very blunt person, and she has story times that always have some kind of advice, moral, or lesson, whatever you want to call it, which I think is really cool. And although we don't agree on everything, I really love how she lays things out, and she does it in such a way that even if you don't necessarily agree, you'll respect her point of view because she is a smart individual. Anyways, I'll link her YouTube in the description. I would strongly suggest you check her channel out if you like story times and people who are no bullshit. Anyways, today I wanted to have a little chat with you guys, mainly about appearances, because Brighton and I are very different looking, you know, like I'm full of tattoos, she has a couple tattoos, I'm dark haired, pale, she's like blonde and long haired, like complete opposite kind of appearances. So if you were to see both of us, I doubt you would necessarily think that we would get along, and you know, that's fine. Everyone judges based on appearances to some extent. But I wanted to tell a bit of a story of when someone judged my appearances, and it was just so funny. And there is a bit of a moral too. So I think we can all agree on the fact that stereotypically, if we stereotype a social justice warrior, I might fit into that category. I have the tattoos, I have a piercing, I am mostly non-traditional looking, so, you know, I can see why people might categorize me like that. And I've even gotten so many fucking comments of people saying, hey, you know, like, I thought you were gonna be an SJW, but I'm surprised that you're not. Which I don't really blame people for thinking that way, because, I mean, we all have our ideas of what a Nazi looks like, what an SJW looks like, what a Republican looks like, what a liberal looks like, you know, so it's okay. Anyways, so when I was in my third year of college, I was in 2 classes with this same guy, and I'm gonna call this guy Sam. So I was in 2 classes with Sam, and to be very frank, the first vibe I got of Sam was not very positive. He seemed very cocky, and the way he would address the rest of the class and the teacher when he'd raise his hand was very presumptuous. Like, sometimes it almost seemed like he thought he was teaching our professor about English or about Victorian literature or about whatever the fuck our classes were. It was very off-putting, and honestly, I really did not like him. There was something that just was, ugh. And it was funny because there was a girl who would always sit in the row next to me, and anytime he spoke, we'd just look at each other and be like, anyways, it was funny because one thing I noted about this guy, because I'd always sit at the back of the class and he'd always be in front of me then, I'd note that he would always kind of start to try to talk to a girl, and it was always very obvious that he wanted something from her, you know? So he'd be like, hey, like, can we exchange numbers? Which isn't a weird thing to do in class, because a lot of the times you want to have someone via Facebook or phone, so if you forgot the homework, don't know what to do, have questions, you can just text them, right? So he did it in such a way where he seemed to not have a very specific goal in mind, let's say. But to me, it was very obvious that this was his way to kind of start flirting, to kind of like inch his way in, to get the number, saying that it's for school, and then end up texting her about not school kind of stuff. And I noted that he did this in both classes and multiple times, because sometimes he'd either the girl would be like, oh, I have a boyfriend, I don't want to do that, or the person would just say, oh, I'll give you my social media, and this guy didn't have any social media. I saw him kind of creeping on this one girl who we're gonna call Shelly. And so Sam was creeping on Shelly, and he kind of got shot down, not exactly, because she just mentioned her boyfriend casually, which I think was her way to tell him to back off. And so later on, he started trying to talk to me, but the way he was talking to me was very different, because Shelly and all the girls he was creeping on before were without tattoos, long hair, very feminine, very soft, you know, just not me, okay? Just the opposite of me. Whatever you imagine the opposite of me as, that, okay? And so he starts talking to me, so he kind of talked to me like I was a dude, which I was totally fine with, because obviously I was already with Jacob. And so after a while I asked him like, hey, were you ever like trying to get with Shelly? And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? And I was like, dude, it was kind of obvious. I was sitting at the back and you would always try talking to her and talk to her about the homework and then ask for her number. It's really obvious. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, it's really hard to meet women here, especially because most people that are like in 3rd or 4th year already have a boyfriend or have met someone, which is true. I feel most freshmen and younger people a lot of the times come in single, but the older people are often taken or want to be single. So I was like, okay, I can understand. He's like, yeah, it's just really annoying because I just wish women would just tell me up front that they had a significant other. And I'm just like, you know, that's a little bit complicated though, because when a guy speaks to me, I think I respect men enough to not assume that the only reason a man would speak to a woman is to try and like hit that or something.
Homeboys gonna like, get it.
The way that I sometimes talk to guys in my class, it's not because I'm hitting on them. I'm literally talking to them about whatever the fuck we're talking, and there's this thing called friendship, but whatever. And I was like, you know, if you talked to a girl and she immediately said, oh, I'm taken, wouldn't you find that kind of insulting? Because A, they're assuming you're hitting on them, and B, they're kind of propagating the idea that men and women can't be friends without, you know, the guy trying to hit on them. So it's complicated, you know? A woman has to know you're hitting on her before saying I'm taken. She can't just say, oh, a guy's talking to me, I'm taken, don't fucking talk to me. Because what if you just want to be friends? What if you're gay? What, like, there's so many just... So at one point there were these guest speakers that were coming to our school, and they were coming to talk about like mental illness, and I think it was about some mental illness, about split personalities, which I've always found really interesting, right? So he's like, hey, like they're coming this Saturday, the speakers, you want to go and like see them? And I was like, yeah, okay. And let's note that this entire time, this whole interaction, I had my engagement ring on, okay? So let's just put that out there. And I never said I was taken because there was nothing to indicate that he was trying to flirt. He was literally just asking me about school shit. So then anyways, we go to this thing, and while we're at this, while we're listening to these guest speakers, I see him starting to stare at my hand. So once it's over, we leave, right? And we walk to my car, and then he's like, hey, so like, I don't know how to say this without being awkward, but I was wondering if you wanted to like go out to dinner sometime. And I was like, what? Wait, what? And I was like, I'm taken, dude. And he was just like, wow, so that ring is really an engagement ring? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess I was just getting mixed signals from you. And I'm like, what mixed signals? I honestly just answered your questions when you spoke to me. And other than that, I said, yeah, let's go see some guest speaker, talk about mental illness, because I told you I was interested in split personality disorders and stuff like that. And then, so we continue to be friends, because I texted him after and I'm like, I don't want you to feel bad or whatever, but I'm totally down to continue being friends or whatever. And he's like, okay, whatever. So we move on from that, and later on I find out that he thought that I was single and the type of girl to, not exactly to sleep around, but someone very sexually liberal because I had tattoos. And he's like, oh yeah, because of your scummy. First he called my tattoos scummy, and that was a no in my book. We don't talk anymore, obviously. But he's like, yeah, just because you seemed like you weren't traditional, I just assumed you wouldn't be in any relationship and would be down to kind of just see where things goes, or just see where things go and be friends with benefits. And I was like, what the fuck? And it was just very interesting because, like I said, having your stereotypes or whatever, that's totally fine. But it was so funny that this specific person brought it to the length of knowing whether I was single or not based on the fact that I had fucking tattoos. And I was like, how do you conflate all of that? Like, oh, she has tattoos, therefore she's sexually liberal. And if she's sexually liberal, then she probably doesn't want to be in a relationship. So she's probably single and is interested in me. So I don't know, I just thought that was really funny. Anyways, the real bottom line about this is that you need to be really careful on what you fucking assume about people. And I know that it's easy to, I don't know, see someone with pink hair and tattoos that think that they're SJWs, or that I've gotten a lot of times that people think that just because you have tattoos, you lost your virginity really young. Like, I've gotten that from so many people. Like, I remember when I was 19, I was still a virgin. I already had a couple tattoos, and people legitimately told me they thought I had already had sex because I had tattoos, and I was like, how is that related? But it was just a really interesting kind of thing to find out. So I mean, obviously the bottom line is don't assume, and it's better to be blunt and just ask people something than think you know and then, you know, be embarrassed or waste your time. But the real thing I wanted to ask you guys is there something about you that people have judged you on? Kind of like me and my tattoos, meaning that I'm XYZ. Is there something that you guys judge or have been judged on? Because I'm really curious to see what kind of experiences you guys have had with that. Anyways, I know that this was a random video, but I've been thinking about it for a while, and yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and let's go on with the fan art. Remember to check out Brighton's channel.